Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the McKinney, their part number TA2714. This is a 4.5 inch by 4.5 inch ball bearing hinge. This is oil rubbed, so the plastic packaging sticks as a result of the finishing process. That's their US 10B finish. I call it as I see it. I don't like that as 10B. This might be a 10A, relieved kind of finish. I mean, you can see in certain ways that it may be complementary to 10B, but not. I'm not happy with this 10B finish. That's what 10B looks like from McKinney on a steel-based hinge, the TA2714. This is a very common hinge, 4.5 by 4.5 inch. This is going to be used, of course, on your typical wood doors, wood frames, steel frames, wood doors, steel frames, steel doors, things of that nature. Now, the screws for steel are certainly a bit more. They're a bit darker than this finish that's here. Let's go through the extended description, moving past the disclaimer regarding my lack of thrill with the finish. Okay, this is a ball bearing hinge. This is a full mortise hinge. You can see from the swag on the hinge leaves there, they're meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and frame. This area here, that's where the swag is, when the leaves are brought parallel. Okay. 5 knuckle. This is a standard weight hinge. That means it's 134 thousandths of an inch leaf thickness, and as a result it would have 2 bearing packets. This is recommended for standard weight or in medium frequency doors in a standard size. If you get into doors that are wider than 3 foot, like 3'6" or 4 foot doors, you should certainly start thinking of thicker hinges, maybe a taller size than a 4.5 inch as well. This is available in a number of finishes, and be mindful that this is steel, so the finish is going to be complementary or representative. If you're looking for oil rubbed bronze, you'd probably want it to be a bronze base material, because that's what is going to give you the faithful finish. So when you're doing it on steel, it's obviously, an approximation in my opinion. Depends on how stringent you need to be with matching oil rubbed bronze. Polished brass, satin bronze, oil rub bronze, polished chrome, satin chrome, and prime coat can all be done on this hinge. There is a link below this video, a couple of them in fact. The first one is to the template that will allow us to review all of the dimensional properties of the hinge. And if you're replacing a hinge and you're not sure if the location of the screw holes, this is called template, by the way. Some people call it a half moon. Sure, I understand. I can see why people would call it a half moon. But per the template, you'll be able to review the dimensional locations of the template pattern, which is what this is. I think a standard generated at some point in the early 1970s or thereabouts. But you'll be able to see all of that. And again, screws are in a complementary finish. You will normally get all machine screws and half wood screws with an installation like this. But I can see that you're getting all wood screws and all machine screws with this order. If you have need for a particular requirement of screws, let's say you need all wood screws, specify that when you're ordering it. Because generally you'll have all machine screws, but then half wood screws, because it's atypical to have wood door, wood frame. But just clarify, you want all metal screws, indicate that. And it's better to have more information rather than less. That template will also give you the locations for other hinge types and also their wide throw hinges, the hinges that are wider than 4.5, and even the one that's only 4 inch wide. There's then also a link below this video to a document called Cut Sheet, and that's going to allow us to review the sister products to the TA2714 hinge, and that's nice to be able to know what the other hinge types are from McKinney. And let's review that. So you're going to see the TA2714. That is going to literally mean steel-based, is what that's going to mean. It's also going to mean ball bearing. If you wanted a non-ferrous-based material, like that bronze that we had talked about earlier, TA2314 would be the way to go with that. And if you wanted to get away from the bearing for whatever reason, just plain bearing, it would just be a T2714. Don't see much of a reason to have that, unless, of course, economy was the most important aspect of the application. That cut sheet is handy because it will allow you to review some of the options that are available. Obviously, non-removable hinge. NRP is non-removable pin, where it'd be a safety feature where they would literally drill and tap a hole into the barrel with a set screw, and then a groove would be prepped in the hinge pin. They probably are all as standard, but when you tighten that set screw would seat into that slot in the pin, making it all but impossible to remove the pin once it's been set. You'd certainly want that if you had an exterior opening. The TA is their very high quality system of bearing sort of construction, which is what we have here. Okay. And moving down through the rest of the available options, you can do a TCA, which would be a concealed bearing. And some people like concealed bearing because you literally don't see those bearing packets. A very high-tech way by which to reduce friction on the knuckles moving against each other. And I don't know the percentage of how superior the TCA is to the TB, but it's measurably superior in terms of the ability of the hinge to reduce friction during the opening and closing cycle. You can do radiused corners like 1/4 inch or 5/8. You can do hospital tip, where that would all literally be ground down to give you a significantly radiused profile to the hinge top and bottom, and that's to prevent it becomes an anti-ligature type of option on a hinge used in certain applications. You can do decorative tips like ball tips and steeple tips. That's called a button tip. You can use your imagination and see why that's called a button tip. Safety stud feature, that would give you the ability to have a security style hinge where there would be a stud on one hinge leaf and a hole in the other, so that when the two leaves were closed, you could drive that pin out. Because that stud is sticking into the hole, you're not going to separate the two leaves apart. You can do electrified options naturally. Magnetic monitoring is an option. If you need to know when this hinge is no longer in the closed position, monitoring would be very important. Electrified hardware and electrified deployment of electrified solutions over doors. It's handy to know, of course, the conditions of the lock, of the hardware in relationship to itself. Has the latch been tampered with? Has the latch... You could have the door closed, but the latch may have been tampered with. And you can monitor different portions of the door, and the hinge is one of those areas naturally. You can do slip-in style hinges, which would be an unusual hinge that you'd have on aluminum doors and frames that I see from like the 1960s, where there's a slot cut in the face of the door and or frame, and the leaf is slid in to that slot, and then it's literally screwed through the exterior of the frame down in. And really what changes is the swag on the hinge leaf. So you could do one leaf slip in, both leaves slip in, so you have to know all of that. Beveled edge on hinge side. These leaves, you can obviously use them on beveled installations, but if you were doing an installation where you had a beveled application, you could affect the swag on the hinge leaf so that the leaf literally mimicked the 3-degree bevel on the hinge and keep those two leaves parallel, where when one leaf is basically askew by 3 degrees, they're no longer parallel. No one is going to notice that because you really can't see it unless you're really looking for it. But it's nice that McKinney offers that, because there are applications where you're going to have someone, a high-profile enough project where Having everything look as perfect as possible is crucial. And McKinney obviously is a company that looks to cater to those needs. Available sizes are listed. You can do 3.5, 3.5, 4x4, 4.5x4, 4.5, 4.5, 5x4.5, 5x5, 6x6. I'm sure they can do larger on a custom basis. I'm sure they can, not positive. They can certainly do wide throws, and it's important to be mindful that the height is the first dimension. Always the first dimension on a hinge. You don't want to get in trouble by ordering 5x4.5, thinking the height was 4.5 and the width was 5 inch. The height's the first dimension. So be mindful. If it's a very heavy door, you could have a 5x4.5, and if it's an aluminum door, you could very easily have a 4.5x4. That's a very common size on aluminum storefront material. And that pretty much exhausts the link to the cut sheet. The rest of the information down below, talking about the extended description of everything, is everything we've already covered. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the McKinney products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. The lack of faithfulness to 10B, in my opinion, notwithstanding, it's a good quality hinge because right here in the crotch of where the leaf meets the knuckle, it's finished there. And there are some competitors to McKinney that don't do such a good job with that. And that's good. While I would call this maybe a US 10A or maybe a 10R, it would be reasonably compatible with oil rubbed bronze. Because oil rubbed bronze is a finish that is inherently one that is inconsistent from piece to piece, I don't see any reason why I would disqualify this from being different than any other oil rubbed situation, since they are inherently something that's different from each other. Finally, if you have any questions on the McKinney TA2714 hinge or any other McKinney product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you very much.